Okay, sometimes you're stuck using the quadratic formula. So this is another method. And I say stuck because it's not really my favorite method. It's a little tedious. You have to be very careful. It's detail-oriented. Now, what is easy about it is this is the Algebra 1 formula sheet. It's on here. So in that sense, you don't have to memorize it or anything like that. It's here. You just have to know how to use it. You can always solve using quadratic formula. I only do it when I can't solve by graphing or factoring. Okay? So here it is. So it's just a formula, and you'll have that on the SOL. You don't need to memorize it. Okay, so they say on the formula sheet it says where, and then it gives you this formula. This is just the standard form. Okay, that's the standard form of a formula. Okay, so we have to identify the variables. What is A, what is B, and what is C? So A is the coefficient of x squared, B is the coefficient of x, and C is your constant term. If you're missing one of those, it's 0, right? Okay, this formula has its set equals 0. If it's not in standard form, we have to put it in standard form. We have to solve to put everything on the same side of the equal sign. In this situation, it's already equal to 0. So, identify our variables. That's the first thing I do. So I'm going to do A is equal to -2. B is equal to 16. And C is equal to -32. Okay, so we're going to put it into this formula. So x equals, my solutions are, okay, the opposite of B. B is positive, so it's not tricky, but be careful. If your B is negative, it becomes positive. That's probably the most common mistake. Okay, so -16 plus or minus, there's 2 solutions that this finds us. The square root of b squared. Another common mistake is if b is negative, people forget to use parentheses. That's why I would probably use the store key if I was doing my calculator. Okay, so 16 squared minus 4 times a, which is -2, times c, which is -32. So you can see this gets kind of messy. All over 2 times a, so 2 times -2. And I probably should have used parentheses here because all these negatives, but oh well. Alright, so I can do it on the calculator, or I could do it by hand. Usually what I do is, this is called the discriminant because it actually tells you how many solutions you're going to have. Because you're adding or subtracting this number. Well, if you get 0 here, adding and subtracting 0 is the same. So now you only have one solution. And if you get a negative number in here, remember you cannot take the square root of a negative number. So if you get a negative number here, there's no solution. If you get a positive number, then you've got to work it out. You got 2 solutions. Okay, so I usually do use my store key just to make sure I'm not messing this up. So I got B, let's do 16 store into B. I don't know why I started with B. -2 store into A. -32 store into C. Okay, so I'm going to use my store key, and then I'm just going to enter the discriminant, the stuff that's underneath the square root. Okay, so B squared minus 4AC. I don't have to worry about parentheses and all that other stuff. Okay, so I did get 0. So this is going to be one where I'm only going to have one answer. Okay, so all this became 0, and the square root of 0 is just 0. So I have -16 plus or minus 0. Let me see what, I got that? I mean, if I take the square root of that, it's still 0. All over 2 times -2 is -4. So this just goes away, identity property. So I've got -16 divided by 4. This particular problem only had one solution. And I could write it, you remember with the set builder notation, I could write it like that. That's my solution. So again, usually I get 2 solutions, but in this situation, because the discriminant, what was underneath the square root was 0, square root of 0 is 0, I'm only going to get one answer.